Alrighty, lads, we are back with some Legacy of Kain lore. This time, what the fuck is Elzevir, the Dollmaker? Now, Elzevir, the Dollmaker, is actually not very important at all. And that's one of the most interesting things about him, is that he's important to a minor story in a minor plot. But besides that, despite his dark origins and his dark character arc, there's really not much known about him. We don't know much about him other than what Kain has noticed from looking at him. Like, he is an old man, and he seems to be rather short. So, let's dive into it. We've picked out a few details. Let's get on into it. Firstly, who the fuck is Elzevir the Dollmaker, for those who've never played Blood Omen? Well, Elzevir the Dollmaker was a particularly weird magician who had a knack for crafting dolls and mannequins. Now, when he crafts dolls, mannequins, even teddy bears, and a few other nasty inanimate objects, he is able to empower them with life, with the strength of souls. So he is able to bind one soul to these objects, and now he uses them as warriors, as guardians, as traps. He's able to do a lot with these mannequins, dolls, etc. Now, despite having such powerful magical capabilities, he's actually relatively minor because he's very defenseless. When you fight him, all he's able to do is just throw giant-ass needles at you. He's not like the other mages of the circle who are able to conjure fireballs, or maybe able to just conjure a weird ball of goo that will change you into a liquid state. No, he's not able to do this. Instead, all he's able to do is just bind people's souls to objects, and that's about it. He's not able to do really much else, which I like, because that shows us exactly what kind of mages other humans are in the Legacy of Kain universe. They do have magic, but they're not quite like the Circle of Nine, where they're able to do crazy powerful things like change the reality of the world. No, they're not able to do that. They're able to do very tiny things, and that's about it. They're still just ordinary humans, very defenseless when you put them to the sword. Now, Elzevir himself is a very lonely individual because he lives in an area that's very desolate, also known as the Lake of the Lost Souls. Now, this is only been visited once, which is the Blood Omen area, and that's it. Never do you visit this area again. Now, Lake of the Lost Souls is literally just this lake with a tiny island on it, and this kind of like mansion slash workshop, which is known as Elzevir the Dollmaker's workshop. It's kind of weird. It's like a mansion, but it's not. It's just really the place he works, but also lives at the same time. When you patrol through this area, you realize that he doesn't have a lot of things for comfort. It's just a lot of stuff that empowers him to work. So a lot of cotton, a lot of stuffing, a lot of just leather fabric, a whole load of stuff to just make mannequins. But there's nothing there like a comfy bed. There's a bed, but it's not comfy. No real chairs anywhere in the whole place, so he doesn't sit down. He's just constantly walking. This guy is very dedicated to his work, and it seems that he's just not really interested in humanity one slight bit. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. Elzevir, he heard of a competition coming up. King Otmar was, of course, spoiling his princess, his daughter, because she wanted a doll. So he announced a competition. He'll give a royal favor out to whoever can make the best doll for his daughter. Hundreds of dolls were given, but, well, none could challenge Elzevir. I'm actually curious what this doll looked like, because when we see Elzevir in his workshop mansion, none of the mannequins or dolls look really good. None of them. Even the doll that the princess is in doesn't look that good. So, after, of course, he wins the competition, all he asked for, instead of gold or a house or royal status, all he asked for was a lock of princess's hair. This was all he needed, because he took this hair, this lock of hair, and he binded it to a doll, as I've stated earlier, and he trapped her soul in the doll, despite being miles and miles away. This, of course, was very obvious to King Otmar who did this, and he set out his armies to stop patrolling, stop guarding the place, but instead to look and find Elzevir the Dollmaker to recapture his daughter's soul. This was viewed as a bit of weakness to many of the nobility. They viewed Otmar as being weak for caring so much about his daughter and just letting his kingdom fall. But at the same time, his people loved King Otmar, so they did try to find him. But the problem is that the Lake of the Lost Souls is not humanly accessible. You need to be a bit supernatural to get there. It's a very dangerous path. And even once you get there, Elzevir's mannequins and dolls, they don't die easy. It takes multiple whacks, and then once they're down, they just come back up a few seconds later. Like, you need to burn these dolls to kill them, which is, again, what adds to how powerful Elzevir is. His army does not die. His army needs to be burned in order to die. That makes him incredibly powerful should an army ever come and attack him. Now, Elzevir reminds me a lot of Black Butler, where there was a Dollmaker arc who, pretty much the same story. He traps someone in a doll and he collects women of certain young ages. But Elzevir, though, he only trapped one particular woman, which was the princess. We'll never know what it is he planned on doing with the princess's soul. And the fact that the princess's doll was near his bed, it's not really sure whether or not he was a pervert, like some sort of pedophile who just really had a hard-on for this princess, or if maybe he was just so interested in the purity of her soul. After all, we have to remember that souls could possibly be different when someone is using them. So someone who is extremely nice and innocent, their soul could be slightly more powerful or slightly more interesting to work with than someone like Kain, who is completely cruel, completely evil. This is where it would be very interesting because, as stated before, Otmar is a very sensitive king. He's very kind-hearted. And if his daughter's anything like him, that would explain why some people may be attracted to his daughter for her purity. And it would make a little bit of sense if here's this soul snatcher who just says, "Ooh, that's a nice soul you got, let me just take it." But a lot of people theorize that Elzevir is just some sort of pedophile, some sort of pervert who just had a really big hard-on for the princess. Now, that does sound credible, but the only reason why I'm kind of doubting it is because Elzevir is a little too childlike. He's an old man, but he acts very childish. He has tangents, tantrums. He just doesn't seem to be that kind of sexually active dude. And it would make a little bit of sense, too, because he does have women chained up in his workshop. Obviously, he's working on them, but I don't think he would have sexual inclinations to the princess when he's already got women chained up in his place. I really don't think that's the case here. I think it's just that he's some sort of mentally abused individual who admires children for their purity and probably just snatched her soul as part of a collection and just took to her as some sort of pet. That seems more likely to me. But hey, you guys can always comment down below what you guys think. Overall, though, one of the darkest things I think about Elzevir is just the fact that he doesn't matter. He really has no real place in the story. Like, when I was playing the game, my first time, I was like, you know, this guy is creepy and all that, and the music is creepy, and his workshop's creepy. But honestly, he just feels kind of out of place. Like, I just don't give a fuck about this guy. Can we just kill him and get on to the other story? And that's honestly the best way to describe Elzevir, is that if you were to meet him in real life, you just kind of look over him and just go, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I have to do to you, but besides that, just know I really don't give a fuck. You could be a kitty tiddler for all I give a fuck, but I really don't care. Whereas if I knew another guy was after kids the same way you were, I would be a lot more furious and I would just massacre their ass, just beat the shit out of them. But Elzevir, for some reason, he's just so caring. He's just so unnotable. And it might be due to the fact that he dresses a certain way, or the fact that you can just kind of see his mentality is diminished. He's in a juvenile state, so he may not even comprehend what is right and wrong, and that makes it where it's harder for you to hate him the same level as you would hate a normal person. This is the weird, fascinating thing about Elzevir. He's so goddamn unnotable that it makes him notable. Like, no one ever talks about the random gypsy guy in Blood Omen who is completely unfazed by Kain approaching him in a werewolf form. Like, what kind of shit has this gypsy seen that he is unfazed by a vampire in a werewolf form in the middle of a city, walking zombies everywhere, eating people, and this gypsy's just sitting there stirring his pot, no fucks given, just tells the werewolf, hey man, if you're gonna walk around the place, you better adopt a disguise, man. Peace. And then he just goes about his day. Like, that character seems more noteworthy to me than Elzevir, because he's just so weird and so odd. Like, what the fuck kind of dude is this? What kind of shit has he seen that he just casually gives a werewolf advice? But Elzevir, he's just so unnotable and he's so inconsequential to the story. You just kill him and then that's it. You're just like, alright, on to the next objective. Like, what the fuck? It's so weird. But at the same time, it makes a lot of people talk about him and it makes them go, you know, I kind of want to learn more about him. We don't even know much about him. Like, I just killed this dude. I just ran into his workshop, destroyed his entire army of toys, killed him. And now that I'm looking back at it, who the fuck is he? Which is probably why a lot of you are clicking on this video. Like, who the fuck was he after I just, you know, went into his house, cut his head off, and just took the doll, completed the whole game. And now I'm sitting back going, look at all those innocent people I killed who had no names. What about that one fucker with the dolls? That's the weirdest thing about Elzevir. But besides that, this has been Free to 700. I am out. I hope you guys learned a bit of something with him. There's not a whole lot about him, and the developers really don't give a fuck either about him. They don't even care to expand upon him. They like him where he's at, where he's just this unknown figure who was powerful to his own extent, but he wasn't quite notable throughout history. He was just an end to a mean. His whole purpose in life was to die for someone else's quest. That is it. He meant nothing.